What's up, family? Love and light, peace and blessings. It's your girl,
I,
Catalea, coming at you guys live with another Catalea Speaks. And you guys know that this series, what we're doing for Black History Month, is we are honoring our Black men who are successful, who are pillars in the community. And of course, I had to have Mr. Antonio Banks on.
hey, hey, what's the word? What's the word? What's the word,
he's
champ? How we
definitely
living?
he's definitely like a little brother to me, y'all. I've known him ever since he was 18 years old. Him and my brother are best friends. I've been basically most of the people who are coming on for this series, I actually know y'all, and they are super dope in real life. So, and
Yeah.
go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and let everybody
Oh,
know who you are.
yeah, what's good, y'all? My name is Antonio Banks. Like she said, I've known her since I was 18, young frat guy. Gary is my sans, part of a Phi Beta Sigma fraternity incorporated, and Catalea has always just been a supporter of us and our endeavors. It was crazy because I was flicking through some of my old photos, and I had a picture of, I don't know if you remember that time you let us throw a party at your
In
house.
my
You remember
house.
that? It was like right after we crossed, and it was like it had the crib in the background. We was looking, that was wild, but you've always been a big supporter of us, man, in all of our endeavors, and always just showing love. So when you said you wanted to connect and talk about this, I said for sure, like whatever you need, you know. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Let everybody know your social media outlets where they could reach you at.
Social media. So on IG, it's Warbucks. So WARBUXX. Double points for you if you know what that means. And then on Twitter, I can be found at not applicable. So at NOT_APPLICABLE _
Okay, see,
and that's it.
both of those names are very interesting. So you gonna have to explain them to us. But my brother said, "Let's go." Gary said,
Where you set that at?
"You can't see the comments. I wish you could. You don't see comments or anything where it has where you could click on the comments on your screen.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
You see
Let's
it?
go. Let's go. Another fine and chocolate man. All right. Thank you, Ebony
Woo!
Miller. Ebony Miller letting them go. All right, for sure.
So explain those names to us. I want to
You want to know the
participate.
name?
Yes.
So the first one, the Instagram one, is not that complicated. But when I was in high school, I used to be a real big fan of like the Diplomats, like Cameron and Jewels and Jim Jones. And on one song, I forgot what song is that. Oh, I Really Mean It. He say something. I forgot the whole lyric, but he say, kill it, carry more trucks. His daddy wore bucks," and I didn't know who that was because I never watched Annie. I didn't find out that it was actually like an old white man until way later. But I just like the lyric from Cam, so that stuck forever. So like my email address has been that for like 50 years. 50 years. I'm really consistent, so that's been that. The not applicable one, how did that come about? Oh, so my I think my Instagram or my Twitter one used to be the same thing, but then I went through a little rough patch, and so I wasn't on Twitter. So I tried to like go ghost and made it say like not applicable, like nobody existed there and stuff like that. But it just stuck. I never changed it after that.
I
So
actually like
uh,
that though. That's kind of dope.
yeah. And you can't confine me to a box, you know. So I'm not applicable to the stereotypes that you want to put me in. So I guess it's fitting that we're here today on your series. So
I
yeah,
like that.
happy to be here.
I like that. So tell everybody a little bit something about you. Like how did you become the great Antonio Banks? Well,
How?
and he forgot to put doctor in front of that, y'all.
Oh yeah.
Doctor Antonio Banks.
Doc, for sure. But yeah, I mean, if you want to know anything about me, I am just really just a manifestation of love and support and guidance and protection from a lot of different people through the years from the beginning. And whether that started with my mom, I mean, before that, right? All praise due to the Most High, but you know, through him to her, uh, I've always just been protected, right? And always have been loved by my community, and always have been poured into. And so as I've grown up and, just got older in my years, I felt it was like my duty to pay that back in any way that I could. So I'm just a manifestation of people that have poured into me over years.
So tell everybody, like, what is your education? What is your educational background?
So how far you want to go? You want to go back to the beginning?
Let's go. Let's go way back.
We're gonna go back then. If you want to go back, we can go back. You stupid. So I mean, in the beginning, like when I first started school, I actually didn't go to like kindergarten or much of first grade. So I actually started school um at 102nd Street Elementary, which is in Watts, California.
What's in the
Uh,
building?
Watts in the building for sure. And there, um, that's where I kind of got hip to education like really quickly. Um, I think that time not being in school and kind of like just being with my mom and my dad kind of like helped me prepare me. So when I actually started to go to school full time, I was like just a little bit ahead of like my peers. And
Also, is
so
that why you had what? Why you waited and you went like straight into what, second grade?
I mean, I think it was just kind of like a combination of things that was happening in our life. Like I would start school, like I started kindergarten, didn't finish. I started first grade, but just life was happening, so I didn't finish. When I was in first grade, we didn't finish because that was around the time that the Northridge earthquake happened in '94. I don't know, were y'all out here already in '94? Y'all
No,
wasn't
we
out
were
here.
still in Arkansas. Yeah.
Yeah, so '94 was kind of crazy. That was like a really big earthquake in California. And then we had to move and all this stuff. So we didn't go back. And so second grade is when I really started to go like consistently to school. But in that time, that's not to take away from the fact that we weren't learning, right? Because my mom has always been a real big proponent of education, right? And she says like the only, not Ann Banks the rapper, but I do know I've seen that. That's hilarious. She's always been a big proponent of education, right? And her thing she always says like, there's no easier way or no quicker way to change your situation than through education, right? And so even though we weren't in formalized school, we were always learning, always reading, things like that, doing our math, doing our puzzles. We always did things that were centered around education, even if we weren't in it formally. And that paid off to a degree when we actually got in school. So, like I said, I was a little bit ahead of some of my peers and things like that. So I was always kind of like, my teacher would like lean on me to like help my peers, like teaching them like how to read or like how to add and stuff like that. So
Aaron is a freaking genius, y'all. So don't let him fool you.
nah, there's some
A
real geniuses
genius.
out there.
But go ahead.
So yeah, education was always just kind of essential to my life. And one of the things that happened that kind of like made me for sure want to go into it was like when I was in third grade, I had a teacher. Her name was Miss Francine Battle. She's probably one of the dopest teachers that I ever came across in my K-12 education. And she was a Black woman, of course, right? So what happened was um, she was like a teacher who took people from all different spectrums of like the behavior kind of like spectrum, right? So she had like knuckleheads in her class that like hadn't done well leading up to her class. She had like kids that were in GATE, which is like the gifted and talented program, gifted and talented education. She had like the whole range, and her thing was like, I don't care, just give them to me, and I can turn them around, right? And in that, she was just like one of the dopest people ever. Um, and a situation happened and we moved and we were actually about to be taken out of that school, and she was like, nah, like they're going to finish off this year, because she believed in like the congruency, like messing up like people's like pathway halfway through a year can be really detrimental to their learning experience. And so my teacher, she lived in like West LA, and she would come and pick me and my brother up for school every day for like a whole semester to take us to
Wow.
school, and then she would take us home. And that was just crazy because it was just like it just showed her dedication to education, right? Um, and that was like when I was inspired, and I was like, no, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. Um, so yeah, that was dope. And she really, we could get into that part later, but what I would say is that she bucked the Eurocentric standard of teaching, right? K-12 education is really rooted, and I saw something that you I put on your page, but then I couldn't see it again. But K-12 education is not for us. It's not designed for us, right? It's based on a standard that is not congruent with how we learn as a people. We're geniuses. We're brilliant, but if you try to make an elephant climb a tree, they're not gonna be able to climb that tree. You know what I'm saying? And so education on the whole can be problematic for our students, right? But
Right.
she had picked that up really early on, and she found ways to turn, like, she had like the highest like testing scores with like people who had done like terrible the year before, and nobody could figure it out. But it was just her seeing the humanity in people and learning how they learned, and then applying that, making sure they learned the information in a way that was helpful for them. And so from there, I kind of just had that passion for education. Left that district, so we left LAUSD and we went over to Linwood, California, which is right down the street. But
Yeah, not far.
yeah, it's not far at all. Did fourth grade, and then in fifth grade, um, they were like, "Bro, I was bored in school, and so they skipped me a grade because
Told you he's
I
smart.
was I was bored. So they skipped me from fifth grade to sixth grade, and I ran into a black male teacher, who, what we could say is like, not all skin folk is kinfolk, right?
Right.
They're not they're
Right.
not
Facts.
they're not all for us, right? And I didn't understand it at the time, but my mom did, right? And he gave me like the most trouble ever as an elementary teacher. And I could not understand why. But he would placate to, all the other groups and things like that. But he had it out for black students for a reason that he probably didn't even understand. He was just a product of white supremacy that he didn't even understand. So I hated that year. I still did well. I ended up being like the valedictorian and stuff like that. He couldn't deny my skills and stuff like that, but he hated me.
He was just basically trying to hold you back.
Yeah,
For
yeah, 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 yeah. So you know how things happen. So, but
And
my
I can
mom,
imagine like something like that would still motivate you to want to go even harder, right?
uh, I mean, I was a kid, so I didn't get all the things that was happening in the background. I was just doing my thing. So, but my mom was a big advocate on my behalf. So she was at his head. She was at his head, and I wouldn't understand, like, damn, like, why you going so hard? But I get it. Like, I get it in retrospect, right? Um, and he, like, what I will say is that people of color, black people who don't understand and are not in the fight for our people, but are placed in positions because they think that they're going to, because systems kind of get like a token and things like that, they're more detrimental to our community than others, in my opinion. In my opinion. Because that can do some really deep damage to people that they don't understand and they can't process that. But luckily, like I said, I had a mom who was able to kind of like walk me through that. So that happened. Seventh grade, we're going through the life story. Seventh grade, we had kind of like some interesting life transitions, and so I ended up living with my biological father for a bit. And I was in school over in back in LAUSD. I was at this school called Audubon Middle School, which is like Crenshaw Junior. I don't know if you know the demographics, but like most of the kids who end up going there, they ended up going to like Crenshaw High. And I was there for a little bit, but I didn't finish seventh grade. So I didn't finish seventh grade either.
What?
Yeah, it's weird. It was a weird story. And then we came back to Linwood in eighth grade, finished up there, and we did a little bit of I did a little bit of high school, like the first like couple of weeks, and then we moved to San Bernardino. And in San Bernardino, it was interesting. So there's like this it's like a weird kind of beef in between people from the IE and people from LA, right? And
Right.
I didn't understand that when I first moved out there. And it's actually, it's silly, but there's like this beef, and it's like always tension, like when you migrate from like LA to IE. Um, and so I had a little static when I first got to high school, but I was like chilling, and people were chilling. Um, was in like, like honors course. So this is probably like the most interesting thing about high school for me was that my school set, it was San Gorgonio High School. So it set like on this border of like affluent community, like which is called like East Highland.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
then like it's like a hood part. And so like a hood part is called like Little Africa.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like LA. And that's where I lived at. I lived in Little Africa. But so it was weird because my social circle were people from like around that area, but I was in like honors classes. So I was in the classes with the people that like were in East Highland. So it was like a weird like high school situation. But that's where I started to learn a lot about uh, like student leadership. So I got into student leadership because of a girl that I liked, right? She was in.
It's always a girl
It's
behind
always a girl, right? She was in ASB, and she just kind of like recruited me into ASB. So I started in ASB in 10th grade. But before that, I tried out for the football team. And it was an interesting situation because I was out there for like, first of all, like the coaches, they just recruit everybody, right? I think they recruited like all men of color, all black dudes, right? So they was like, yeah, you should come out, blah, blah, blah. I was like,
They
I'll play
just
Matt.
recruited all black dudes, and you was a big old black dude, so they was like, hell yeah.
No, I wasn't that big then. I was a smaller guy, but
Really?
yeah, nevertheless, they had me on there, right? And in like the first like couple of days, I didn't have cleats, and so I like did something, and I broke my left thumb, and I'm left-handed, and I was like really jacked up. I had to get like surgery on my hand and stuff like that, and I couldn't finish up my ninth grade year. And my mom was like, oh no, like you like if it's messing with your school, like nah, we're not going for that. Like athletics would be secondary. But then also like when I did get back to school, and this is like something why I get frustrated about like student athletics because like they didn't care. Like the coaches didn't care. They was like, oh, you coming? Are you gonna try again? I was like, I don't know. It's like, whatever. Never talk to me again. So they use our bodies for their
Right.
for their advantage, and they use us up. And if we're not good to them, they just go on to the next one. So that's a
Yeah.
little gripe. That's a little gripe I have with student athletics, but that's a whole other story we can get into. But yeah, so I got into student leadership. Was still in class like honors classes and things like that, and just really started to kind of like come into my own as just as like a leader on campus. Learned a lot about teamwork, mentorship. um, I liked it because I could like skip classes a lot of times to like set up events for students and stuff like that. And that was kind of like my pathway to like popularity, right? So like I wasn't an athlete, but I was like pretty known in the school because of like my student leadership. You get me? So did all of that. So that was like my high school career. And then I never forget, um, I was at the end of my senior year and I had like a 3.8. And my high school counselor called me in. She was like, "Oh, mijo, like I don't think you're gonna be able to go to college." And I was like, "What you mean? Like I've been doing cool in school this whole time." And she was like, "Oh, you didn't take Spanish." And so I had a 3.8, but because I didn't take Spanish, I was going to be ineligible to go to like schools. And
Really?
so, well, to go to like 4-year universities. She was like, "Oh yeah, mijo, you're gonna have to start off at a community college." And again, my mom hit the wall. She was pissed. But there was no way to like really circumvent that. So what I had to do was in my senior year, in the second part, I would go to school, and then at night I would go to San Bernardino Valley to take their like college Spanish class. So while all my friends were like partying and stuff that last year, that's what I was doing with my night. And then I had to do it again in the summer because you have to have like 2 years. But in college, like the college courses are equivalent, like one semester is equivalent to a year. So I have to do that spring and then that summer. Missed all of the deadlines for like a lot of the UCs and stuff like that, but CSUSB was still open. Well, a lot of the CSUs were open, and I got into like all of them, but like the thing was, I was still only 17 at the time,
Oh.
and my mom was like a little bit hesitant about me going like really far from home, and so we decided together that going to Cal State San Bernardino would be the best choice for me. Uh, Shit, we talking for a minute.
No, you good. You good.
You
And no,
good?
Lavelle, we do have conversations. We will give everybody a chance, to ask questions, to whatever you want to say. We do give you a chance to do that, but we gotta get to the meat of things first, y'all. We gotta get to know. We want to get to know Ant. I want you guys to see like how really amazing Ant is. Like he's such a great person, very intelligent, very educated, all of the above. So I want you guys to. That's why I told him to start at the beginning. I know it's a lot, y'all, but I really want y'all to get to know him. But go ahead, Ant.
Where we at? So we got to Cal State, right? Boom. Did the freshman first year experience. Was not really liking it too much. And I remember we went to go see my great grandma like over winter break. And she asked me like, "Oh, like how's school going?" And I was like, "It's cool." She was like, "Oh, you don't like it, huh? You about to leave, huh?" And I was like, "Oh no, but like I don't really like it that much." Um, but it was just a lot of different things, right? But I did start to get clicked up with people, met a lot of people, and then one of the guys in my hall, like in my dorm hall, he was like one of my best homies, and he was like, "Hey, we should like be Greek," and I was like, what is that like? And so we started to like explore that together. And at first, I think he said he wanted us to be newts. He wanted us to be Kappas or whatever at first. And so I was like doing the research on that. And then something happened. He was like, "No, we should look at being Sigmas." And I was like, "All right, whatever. Like, I don't get it." And so we started to kind of like go around to like their like events and like interest groups and all that stuff. And that's where I met G, right? Met Chuck, met Tokes, met Chris, and met some other cats who weren't able to go on that journey with us for whatever reason. Um, and then became a part of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, Blue Phi, you know, Springo Phi, Musi, Cal State, all that stuff, Trade Club, Triple Threat the Third, 6 weeks, 5 days, 4 hours, 20 minutes, 32 seconds. I can still run it. I don't do that stuff no more. But if push come to shove, I can still run that. But in that, in the beginning, it was a little bit more like the social thing, the partying and stuff like that.
Oh boy, did
Um,
y'all party?
we did. We absolutely did. We had
Remember, y'all had that party at my house, and y'all, I lived in the hood, okay? I lived on
a.
K Street, y'all. Y'all have no idea where K Street is in San Bernardino, in the hood, okay? And I'm
It went
telling you,
down.
they was partying in my house.
Hey, we had shit cracking over there. It was good. It was live. It was live with the baby crib in the. That's crazy. But yeah. So we started off, more so on the social side, really on the social side, really heavy, but then a little bit towards the, like, I would say a little bit into our journey there, we kind of started to shift a little bit and be a little bit more focused on like the programming for the community, right, for the students and things like that, but also bringing in like newer cats and kind of like mentoring them so that they can have an experience too. And so I think that's where a piece of our like student leadership and student development start to come in and really kick in. Um, and then from there, got involved with a couple of different other things. We were always kind of like involved with like BSU a little bit, not like super. We weren't
I
like
was the president. I was the vice president of BSU at San Bernardino
hey,
Valley College, y'all. For real. For
hey.
2 years straight.
What years was that? Because the people are probably still there.
Oh
All right, we can talk. We
Lord.
can talk. We can talk about that offline. But the people that work there are probably still there right now.
I know a lot of them are. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so we were in BSU, and the Sigma thing was like kind of like our foundation of student leadership. But then we all kind of like started to venture off into other things. So like Chuck and Tokes were like always kind of like more so business oriented and stuff like that. So they would be like in the business clubs and entrepreneurship clubs and stuff like that. And you see us paying off in space for them. And G and I we were doing more like residential education. So we ended up being RAs. And so that was a part of my experience where I learned a lot of just about like problem solving, conflict mediation, programming, evaluation, assessment, uh, connecting people to resources, um, just relationship building, taking on perspectives of others, learning about diversity and inclusion and equity and all those different things. That was kind of like the foundation piece for that, where I started to learn a lot of those things that would kind of like end up playing out throughout my career. Um, and then I was involved in ASI, which was like Associated Students. Um, who got me into that? John Billinger. So John Billinger was like the the
John.
V John, he was like the VP of finance or something like that. And he brought me on, and they were like taking us like to all these like retreats and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, the school got bread. You just have to learn how to access it. And so just learning a little bit about that and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And then all this time though, I was going to school because I thought I wanted to be a teacher, right? Because of Miss Battle back in third grade, right? So
Right.
that was my initial goal in going to college. Like I wanted to be a teacher. I got to the end of that experience, and you have to do like observation hours of like watching teachers in like in action, and you have to do like 4 different rotations and see different classrooms. Um, and I don't know what it was, but every single one of those teachers, like they were teachers at different points of their career. So I saw like a brand new teacher, a teacher that was in for like 3 years, a teacher that was in for 10, and a teacher that had been in for 20. They all hated their job. Like they all hated how education played to the standard, right? Like the kids, I would be in the classes, and from the time that I was in elementary to when I was at the end of college, it looked a lot different. Like kids were in class reading like the standards, like 1.1 student will be able to learn. Like it was weird, right? But you know how that works with like standardized testing.
Yep. Hmm.
That is the impetus for like, student like district funding and things like that. So K-12 is jacked up in that way, and that's a whole different
Exactly.
conversation.
That was
But they
like one
all
of the issues I had too, because I felt like they weren't preparing children to retain the information. They were preparing children to take tests so that
exactly,
they could get their funding.
exactly, exactly. And they talked about the fact that a lot of the creativity had been stripped out of teaching. So even if you developed or had these brilliant ideas that you want to share with the kids, you have to make sure that they were ready for the SAT 9 test or the STAR 9 test, whatever it's called. You have to make sure they were ready for that, right? So um divine intervention, right? So I was like, I don't know if I want to go down that road. And around that same time, our supervisor for housing introduced us to like the field of student affairs or like higher education. And so I got clicked up with a program at Cal State Fullerton. Um, and that just kind of like the things that we have been learning in college, it was just kind of like the next level of that, right? Like student leadership development, just learning about like like student development theories, programming and things like that. Just all those things just kind of like on the next level, right? It was like you were learning how to train those student leaders essentially. And so a lot of it was just like it was like experiential, right? So I was able to apply what I had been through to the program. And so um, that worked out. Was in the field for a little bit. I was in the field for about 3 years, and then I was like, okay, how can I take this to the next level? Um, and then went back and did my doctorate in education.
I was there.
You were there.
Everybody,
You
I
was
was there
there.
that day.
She was always there. Liz always there. And when I was in my program, so if you aren't familiar with like how higher education works, you have to do our like doctoral programs. You have to do like a dissertation, which is like basically a research project, and you write up on it. You write extensively on a research project, but it should be something that you're interested in. And what I did was I kind of looked back to like my initial time in college. And so like that first year in college that I was talking about, Cal State San Bernardino used to have like a really high Black student population. And so like
Yeah.
my first year there, it was a gang of us. They were like all over, like all over. Like I had like all kind of Black friends all over. And in that second year when I came back, it was like my sans, and that was it. It was like it was a couple other people, but it's like essentially they had been wiped out. And I thought that that was unique to that year, but that's an issue that happens in higher education in general. The schools don't retain Black students, and even to a greater degree, they don't retain Black men. And so I wanted to study why that was and why that was happening. And so that was like the critical point of my dissertation. Our program was focused on community college leadership. So I had that a piece of like examining Black male transfer experiences. So I wanted to know why they were able to successfully transfer. And it's not rocket science, right? A lot of them just talked about having support networks to help them navigate the process and navigate the institution. But oftentimes you don't have that person that's going to like say like, hey, you need to go over to this person, or you need to go to this department. Oh, you're not feeling right in the head right now. Let's get you connected to mental health services that we have on campus, right? Because more times than not, the service is there on campus, but if you don't have somebody pointing you in a
Yeah.
direction or somebody to like walk you over, you're not going to know how to really access it, right? And how to use it to your benefit. And so, but that was like that was the main crux of what the students were talking about that I did the dissertation with. They also talked about the fact that it helped if it was a person of color, right? Or if it was it was kind of like a tier, right? Like if it was a person of color, it was helpful. If it was a Black person, it was even more helpful. If it was a Black male that really cared about them, that was like where they found like the most effectiveness in being helped, right? Um, but that's not to say that they couldn't receive help from somebody else, like a white person who cared, but it just was like more effective.
They just felt more secure.
Yeah, exactly. They were able to build like more authentic like rapport with the students and things like that. They identified with them a little bit more, so they were able to kind of like do that a little bit more effectively for them. But that's not to say that it wouldn't be possible if the people just cared. But that's the thing. A lot of times people don't care, or they don't know how to connect with Black men, right? We're
Right.
very unique, very unique breed, right? So
That's why I wanted to do this, because I think Black men are amazing. Like, to me, like, for all the obstacles that Black men face every single day, just by the fact that they are Black men, and to be able to succeed and to be able to survive, and not just survive but excel,
right,
I
right,
have to give my hat off to you guys. Like,
yeah,
that's why I wanted to do this series.
yeah. No, that's real. That's real. And so that kind of led into the next part of my career. And so what I do now, I work with two organizations that are in California. One is called the Moja Community Education Foundation, and they essentially work with community colleges across the state and do programming that's rooted in helping Black students and all other students understand the power of our people, right? So we got to go back and get it first. We have to learn about our history and learn about our heritage before slavery. We had
I
an
know all
extensive
about that program. I'm with it.
we
Go ahead.
had an extensive history before slavery. We didn't just begin as slaves. We were the first people that created education, math, science. We did all that first, and they adopted it. They talk about like the greatest like philosophers, like the Greek philosophers and things like that.
They
They
learned
went to
from
go
us.
they went to go study with us. You know what I'm saying? And they used to give us praise for that, but somewhere along the way, they got a little shiesty. You know how that works. But all of like, so that's kind of like a premise of our program. We have to expose our students to the brilliance and the innate just creativity that exists within us. And when they believe that if we can expose them to that and get them connected to that, then they can see that they have the power to push through the community college system and then on to whatever their next academic journey is. So I work with that program. I used to be like a director of one of those programs at Fullerton College, but now I operate in a capacity where I kind of like oversee and help a region of those programs being successful. And so my
He a
region is
boss, y'all. He a boss.
no, I got a boss. Until I'm my own boss, I'm not a boss. But anyway,
Aw, come
that's
on, you
all.
a boss. If you overseeing it, you still a boss. Cut it out. But go
You
ahead.
silly, you silly. So I help my region is in the Inland Empire, right? So San Bernardino Valley is in there, Moreno Valley, Norco College, uh RCC, Chaffee College, Antelope Valley College, Victor Valley College, Palo Verde College, UC Riverside. All these schools are schools that I help kind of like coordinate their programs or like check in on them to make sure they're running according to our state standards, but also figuring out how they can strategize to work together more collaboratively, which is interesting and actually like a little bit more effective in this online only environment right now. But that's essentially what I do for my primary job. And then I work for an organization called AMEN, which stands for the African American Male Education and Network Development. And so they kind of have like a more like laser focus on Black men, whereas Emoja is like focused on Black people in general. AMEN is focused on, the success of Black men. And I essentially do that same thing for men, just checking in on programs, getting them up and running, and things like that, and making sure that they're connected to each other, and doing that. So right now, I'm deeply seated in the work that I'm passionate about. Kind of like helping liberate our people and letting them know that they can get through these systems. Systems get the outcomes that they are designed to get, right?
Exactly. Right.
But we try to act as a disruptive force to those systems that are in place. And until we can fully replace those, we got to have agents in place and co-conspirators and allies and things like that, to help our students. So that's like essentially like the work that I do right now in my life.
Okay, so what would you say like at this point? Because I feel like a lot of people, children, high school students, college school students are lacking a thing where it's hard for them to explore their imagination and their critical thinking skills. So, what do you think that's impeding on that?
The systems that they're in, K-12, it robs our students of their self-confidence. So I'll start there, right? So if you how can I put this, right? So we still possess those creative, like we still possess that creativity, right? And I remember this cat that's coming up to talk at one of our conferences pretty soon. This cat named Dr. Chris Empton. He talked about the fact that like you could see some high school students like freestyling, like killing it. You know what I'm saying? Like right outside the class, going back and forth, battling and stuff like that. But then they go in their English class and they're dead silent. They're able to flip words, put proses together, rhyme schemes, all that stuff. But they go in their English class and they're dead quiet.
Because it's
It's
not
because
resonating with them, right?
it's not resonating with them and they don't care to make it resonate with them. But by that point, they've been in a system that has kind of isolated them, put them in a silo, allowed them to kind of sink to the back of classes and things like that. So unless you have a system that's designed to help you like be successful, like your self-confidence is going to depreciate over time, right? So think about elementary kids, right? Think about a kindergartner. A kindergartner is full of life, excited. They want to explore, they want to do everything. But you consistently run into these teachers every year who do little subtle things, right? Little subtle things, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they do these like little subtle things to depreciate our self-confidence as it pertains to education, right? And so what you have to have, you like, and this is the part where it's like on community, right? It's on the homes, right? Because you're not going to get it in a regular K-12 program. But um, you have to teach the students about who they are. You have to teach them about what they come from. I always remember we had a guest speaker one time, and they talked about the fact that they grew up in like San Francisco. It was a Black woman. She was like, after we got out of like school in K-12, like the Chinese students would go to like Chinese school. I don't know how the right vernacular, but it's like they would go to Chinese school. The Jewish students would go to like Jewish school, but we would just go home, you know? So it's like all these other cultures maintain their histories and they pass that down. So these people know, they know what they come from. But because we were, you know, cut off from that, we don't have that all the time, right? So we have to make it intentional to teach our children outside of K-12 because it's not going to happen within K-12 for our students. In California, in a lot of places where it's predominantly students of color, the primary teaching force is still white women, right? And this is no disrespect to them, but they don't understand. They're not going to be able to understand how to connect to our people the same way that we can. So it's a system that's designed to get the outcomes that it gets. And until we work as a community to counteract that, it starts with the parents. But that's the thing, like communities are so disrupted now. We don't have like real communities anymore.
And it's hard to
Everybody's
have
kind of
like you don't have a lot of two-parent households either, too, as well.
exactly. So you have one parent who has to shoulder the load of, you know, managing a home and working. So this is a whole different kind of like conversation, but that's the key. That's why they are robbed of that creativity because they're made to feel less than through like little subtle pieces, like little subtle things throughout the time. And it has kind of like a compound effect. So by the time they get to 11th, 12th grade, they just showing up because they have to a lot of the times, you know?
That's how I was, to be honest. I mean, I didn't really have like just thinking back to high school, college, because I did college. I would go to college and be like, I can't do this. Then I go back. Then I'd be like, I can't do this. Now I'm 40 years old and I'm back in college. So
Okay.
you know what I mean? So
That's a testament to our resilience, though, right? The fact that you still getting back in there despite a system that didn't want to have you or didn't look out for you, you still pushing through. And if you want to finish, you will finish, right? But that's the thing is there's nobody there. There's not enough people there to receive us when we get into these places, right? And that is tricky on the other side for people that are in those systems because they shoulder so much because, you know, it's like on the backs of few to take care of a whole group and they get burnt out and the schools play off of that because oftentimes they're going to do it out of the love for their community. Right. And so schools run these Black educators into the ground knowing that they it's like free labor to a degree, right? Because they're working double, triple overtime. They taking calls on the weekend. They checking in here. They doing this. Ask 90% of white faculty or staff what they're doing with their weekends.
kicking it with their family, chilling, relaxing. Because I know a couple. Hey, girls.
And and again, that's no disrespect to them, but it's a part of a bigger system.
Right.
And until we change the system, we're going to have individuals that stand out, right? And things like that. But on the whole, the systems are going to continue to fail our students.
Yeah. So I really believe I'm a strong advocate that, you know, we should definitely just as a community of melanated people, period. I really don't like to call us Black, but I like that melanated term because you know we got that melanin. But as a melanated people, I think like we really should like work hard like to put educational places for our children. Like we need middle schools, we need high schools, we need colleges. And if we can spend all of this money, because you got to think about how hair is a billion-dollar industry. Like people just the blunt wraps alone, y'all. Just the blunt wraps alone. I did a research on this, right? Blunt wraps alone is a billion-dollar industry.
Per year?
Per year. Look it up.
We need to break into that industry then.
Right. So if you're thinking about all it is, and our people are the majority of the people who they say who are the consumers of these products, even though, you know, we do have our other brothers and sisters that are not melanated who do consume as well. But our people are the number one consumers of hair weave, makeup, um, liquor, cigarettes, all of these different things. Why can't we put that money into our children and their education? And I feel like that's really important. And we just got to get our priorities together as a people, period. Because right now we're like point zero 1% of the wealth right now, which is
Um,
really horrible.
right,
Okay.
right.
And it's only
Eh,
like 4 or 5 black billionaires all over the world.
Yep, we got one in the chat right now. I see Todd chatting with us right now. But what I will say is that LA, it's a I don't know if you ever study like structural racism or systemic racism,
Of course I have. Yes.
environmental racism, right?
Right.
All these things come into play. Why do we consume those things at the rate that we do? Because we're in depressed communities a lot of the times, right? Why are communities depressed? Because they lack the resources to live a regular life, right? So it's all cyclical and it's all by design. And the more people that get free and kind of are able to see these systems from a different lens, we're going to get there. We're going to get there because people are waking up at like rapid rates these days. People are learning stuff on like social media platforms that we would never like believe before. My brother just broke down something to me yesterday, like it was like 2 days ago. He broke down a whole scheme to me, and I was like, yeah, like, oh, that should make sense. But it's like this is not stuff that they would teach you in school. You know what I'm saying? But that information is getting out there in different ways. So while I am an advocate of like formalized like higher education and things like that, I believe that a lot of the revolutionary things that are about to happen are coming not by way of formal education.
Exactly.
Um,
I agree.
and so I think that people are learning how to organize a little bit more, right? We start to see the power of collectivist action a little bit more, right? We saw what happened in Georgia and how that led to the country changing. Like they kind of shifted the country for good, right? And as we continue to see that, and as we continue to see how when we strategize and we organize, we can buck whole systems. Like the $ GME. That was just a sign of it, right? The GameStop shit that happened on the stock market. That was just
Right.
by way of collective action, right? And so as we continue to learn how to organize, as we continue to learn how to like center around like a primary mission or a primary vision, the change is going to come. And I think it's the rate at which it's going to come is starting to pick up a lot quicker.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I actually agree with that. So anybody out there, you guys are very welcome to ask and all of the questions that you would like to ask him. I think I made him go through his whole life story here on YouTube, but I had to, because I wanted you guys to see how amazing he is and how talented and smart and educated he is. I just wanted you guys to see that. So if y'all have any questions, you guys can answer them right now. Okay. That's just a statement. But anyways, so while we're getting people together just to ask questions because it's going to take them some time to type those things down. Um, can you tell everybody out there who may be listening that's in these college programs, where can they find you? Where can they find your organizations?
absolutely. So, like I talked about, I work for Moja Community Education Foundation, and they can be found at Umoja. So that's UMOJA Community COMMUNITY.org. Again, that's emojicommunity.org. And then AMEN, which stands for the African American Male Education and Network Development, can be found at A2MEND.net.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
guys, so before we get up off of here, do you have
hmm
anything, because I don't see anybody asking any questions, do you
hmm
have any last things that you would like to say? Any last remarks, any last comments?
Yeah, so I would say just that, like, work with whatever you got from where you are right now. So I don't know how old like the demographic is that's watching this, but you have some kind of talent that you've been developing that you have that you can pass on to the next generation. If you can, when you have time, just invest in the youth. They need us right now. They're going to change the course of this country. Like just from the things that I'm seeing, I know that they're going to change the course of this country, but they need for us to not discount them. They need for us to believe in them. They need for us to allow space for them to show us new systems and ways that they can bring about change. Because they're using technology in a way that, I mean, there's a lot of bullshit on there too, right? But they're using technology in a way that can really shift a lot of things. And we have to grant them the leeway, and kind of like just, mentor them along the way and be there for them while they try to create this change. And if you don't get you a mentee, teach some, just pour into somebody beside yourself. Um, and you'll feel a lot better about yourself too. So, but people like our youth need us. Wherever you are right now, I'm sure you're doing something positive. It might not all be positive, but expose them to the positive, but also show them that they don't have to confine themselves to these systems, and they don't have to, perform a certain way in order to be successful. I think that's something that I struggle with a lot, like early on in my career and even into recently, about trying to like draw that line in between who I just really was as a person and trying to, perform a certain way for the sake of a fucking paycheck, right?
Right.
So like you have to be comfortable, because this one want to try to place you in a box. And the more that they're successful doing that, the less your innate like intelligence and abilities are going to be able to shine. So that's probably all I got for you.
Well, that was good. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on, y'all.
No doubt.
Um, Look them up. He already gave y'all. Tell them your Instagram once again so they can reach you. If anybody has any questions about the programs or want to reach you for any of your endeavors that you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, what is it, social media? So it's WARBUXX. Bam. That's it.
There you go, y'all. Well, thank you so much, and I really
No,
appreciate you for coming on. Love
no
and
problem.
light. Peace and blessings,
Always.
everybody. Make sure y'all tune in tomorrow because we got another one of my little brothers coming through. Tokes in the building.
Oh, Tux is coming through. All right, I'm gonna have to watch that. I didn't know Tux was coming on. All right, for sure.
We got
All right,
another
son.
one, Tokes. Look, I'm trying to get Chuck on here.
Hey,
Cough,
listen,
cough,
that man time is a little bit more expensive. So,
cough.
hey,
I'm
there it
trying to
is.
get him on here. But we're going to have Tokes on tomorrow, y'all. Make sure you guys tune in. We're celebrating Black men. And I just want to celebrate you. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing for the community, for just everything that you're doing right now. It's just amazing to me. And I just wanted to have you on. So love and light, family. Peace and blessings.
One more thing, wouldn't be here without a Black woman. So, love and light to y'all. I'll holla.
Thank you, y'all. Peace. And we out.